Hello, everybody. Uh, Another Sunday evening podcast. 79. Wow. It's been a long time. A lot of episodes, a lot of content. I don't know how we're coming up with ideas every single day. Every single podcast was a different idea, different theme. So, yeah, good to see that's happening and that we're continuing with the show. Welcome to the show, Aditya, as well, per usual. This is obviously, as everybody knows out there, we just talk cricket and talk life and have a nice conversation and breakdown. Good start into the weekend it will be for us from that perspective. Um, you don't get the normal intros like we normally do on all our other shows in the week. The podcast show, this hits a little bit differently, but you still do have to subscribe and click that notification bell for all future videos. And you still need to smash that like button and comment and do all of those things, please, because that's how we will continuously grow. And download the latest issue of the magazine. Link is on the screen as well as in the description. And also help us out with the Patreon. Maybe you can pay for my next, for my second or third, my third screening of Batman down the line. Maybe you could do that by becoming a patron today. Um, yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple of things that we maybe need to get out of the way before we get into the topic, Aditya. Before we have a conversation about the actual topic. Maybe Momentum One Day Cup fixtures. I never obviously got the chance to watch all the games. You can't, unfortunately, unless you're going to be streaming them with pitch vision, etc. But none of them, not all of them, were on SuperSport. But I took a quick look at the scores, and surprisingly very low totals all around, which is quite surprising in a 50 over match. For example, the GBets rocks, I think that match was obviously affected by rain, so you can understand that. But 170 for 6 from the rocks' perspective, and the Knights' perspective, it was 166 for 6. So, yeah, the Rocks obviously winning that one by 4 wickets, but the rain got involved over there. Yanaman Manan getting a 69. I think that was probably the standout performance, you can say, in that match. But it was obviously a low total that they were chasing. When you go over to the Province game, which is quite surprising between the Lions and Western Province, the Lions only got to 186 in 43.2 overs, so they were actually bowled out in the 44th over for 186, which is quite surprising, with Rassie van der Dussen actually holding that together. And so Sunday Magala also getting a half century, which is quite interesting. But with all those Proteas, Reza Hendricks, Ryan Rickleton, Temba Bavuma, Vian Mulder, they only managed to score 186, which is quite shocking from my view. But good bowling from Tsepo Moreke, and another spell short of a fifer. The guy never gets his fifers, unfortunately. Like he has so many forfers. I'm pretty sure that on his stats page they should put forfers there, because you'll see how many times he got so close to a fifer. You'll be shocked. So yeah, interesting from that perspective that it's such a low scoring game. And now obviously I won't know what the full reason for that is. I need to do some research on why it was such a low score. And I'll ask around and try to find out. And then we had the TV game. The Dolphins batted and scored 215 for 6, 50 overs, and the Titans did well to chase that down. Took their time to chase it down too. And the man that stood out was Aiden Markram in the 50 over competitions. Well done to him for getting the highest score in 70. And Sepanela Makanya, 49 not out. Another good performance from him. His move to the Titans has really, I think, opened up his ability. And excellent from the Titans. They only won by 1 wicket. A very close encounter. The top bowler over there was obviously Otniel Bartman, as we know. He put on a very good performance, but also Prinal and Subrayan, 3 for 33 in his 10 overs. So very good performance from him. and the Proteas obviously all playing in these games as well. So that's the quick summary of the round and what's been happening and all of those type of things. Um, interesting, interesting, because it's good that Aiden Markham got a score, and in this is what I'm talking about. Tends to struggle internationally in 50 over cricket, but domestically, it's chalk and cheese for him. He just completely dominates domestically. So there's something over there that there's a block in that step up in that gap. That gap is so big. It's crazy big. And hopefully this next issue of the magazine can answer some questions that we have. There's going to be some interesting articles in the next issue that's going to give us some clarity on all of that. But well done to Aiden Markram. Good performance from him. And from that perspective, we're going to obviously have to look at form then when we pick in 50 overs, if we're going to be doing this same thing that we do in test arenas. If we follow the pattern that they go with, it seems to be that they go with form, Aditya. And the matter whether it's international or domestic, they tend. It seems like the selections have gone that way.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Form is probably one of the most important considerations before you select someone to graduate to another level, right? Because you want a player to be high on confidence when when they're being selected into a team, and that's absolutely right. Very happy for Aiden Markham though. Um, it's been a while, and I think the narrative, at least over the last couple of months, has been about Aiden Markham struggling. So it's finally, after quite a while, it's nice to say that it's good to see Aiden Markham score a few runs.
Mhm. Yeah. It's good to see that. And this was quite a surprising, actually, round of fixtures. It wasn't necessarily anything to run home about and be excited about. I was hoping that we were going to see big scores in this One Day Cup, but by seeing what happened in the CSA T20 challenges and the other matches around the country, even in the 4 day arena, um, it kind of seems like these wickets are a lot slower than they used to be. They are maybe hassling our batters who are maybe more accustomed to seam bowling rather than to spin bowling, but they're getting better at that, and it's giving us good practice for that 2023 World Cup. So these players are getting some insight into that, and ability wise, they're showing their skills. But I think let's move on from the One Day Cup, because it wasn't necessarily anything that I really thought is heavily things to talk about necessarily. Um, there are a couple of good performances all around, like I mentioned, but other than that, nothing really heavily we need to speak about. What we can say is, if these wickets are slow and if these wickets are a little bit turny and spinny and whatever the case may be, the fact that our seam bowlers are performing well in these conditions, it gives me a lot of hope for the future as well, because it means that our bowlers are starting to find ways on how to bowl on slow wickets and still be lethal. And I think that's going to be very key for South Africa in the future, because we're so used to having one-dimensional, fast-paced bowlers. If you're tall, you bounce it into people, and you make it difficult for them to play deliveries. If you're a little bit, if you have swing, then you bowl swing. If you're slower, then you go for slower deliveries. Whatever the case may be, you have certain things that match up and fit little puzzles. But I feel that by learning these skills and learning how to be successful on this, it might just mix up the puzzle a little bit and give you kind of a master key in a way to be able to unravel any type of bowling, no matter what the circumstances are. So even if they're bowling in India, they might be able to find some ways to take wickets, on dusty pitches or difficult wickets that are spinning. So it is good that I feel from that perspective, it's giving our bowlers some excellent opportunities to add some skill to their game. Now, moving on to some of the main topics over here, I think let's start with the main topic of today. And Aticha, I want you to start this off. I want to hear your insights on this and learn from you on your thoughts on this particular case?
With the last couple of years, I suppose, scheduling has been cricket's most significant challenge. And how teams have been able to cope with scheduling tends to be a significant factor in how successful they are. And certainly, one thing that South Africa needs to sort of be cognizant of is that with three formats in the game and the IPL and other leagues, there will be times when your best players will not be available. Or perhaps players are going to be uh, managed. Their workloads are going to be managed. They're going to be rested for certain series, certain tournaments, and it's important to sort of view that positively and use that opportunity to get younger, inexperienced players exposed to international cricket. Because when you have an inexperienced player needs to have that security that they can fail in a game. They can afford to fail in a game and learn along the way, as opposed to exposing them into an environment where they have no choice but to succeed. And sometimes that can be detrimental to the growth of a player. So managing that situation is important. And it takes me back to the 2020-21 series between India and Australia, where I think India had like 21 players, and they were basically down to that last player in that last test. So I felt like India had got that balance right over a period of time, and it's something that I felt will be important for South Africa. And I feel like this series against Bangladesh, for example, might be a good opportunity to expose some of the younger players to international cricket and international test cricket.
If I take it more literally, balance, and look at team setups from 1 to 11, for example, and when selecting certain players. Now, yes, there are cases where you can say you pick certain players for certain conditions. And maybe you play an extra spinner, or maybe you play an extra seeming all rounder, or extra batter, or whatever the case may be, to find that balance in an 11. I want to actually get into the minds of coaches when they pick 11s, especially for the national side, because for me in Test cricket, what I've noticed is I think that not having continuity in your Test team is very disruptive, particularly in Test cricket. I feel that it's important that you have a unit and you stick with it, but to have a sort of game plan and pick players that are adaptive. So sometimes you might not pick the best player in that particular position, but you might pick a player that has the ability to be able to play multiple on multiple wickets and face different types of bowling. Um, and that might jump out to you, and you can say, "Oh, I've noticed this about this player. Yes, he might not have the same amount of hundreds or runs as X, but he showed good ability to be able to play at multiple grounds and score runs across multiple grounds." To me, that means a lot more. And that step up to Test cricket might just be what he needs to take him over the edge and turn him into that world class player, just giving him the opportunity. So when selecting players for that balance, what I want to know is, like, do coaches look at it and have these invisible kind of positions for certain players that they have in their mind that are interchangeable no matter who leaves and comes in? Are they coming with a predetermined game plan that players must slot in, or do they pick their best 11 based on form and whatever the case may be, and then they try to teach those players to adapt to whatever they are facing? I would like to know what order it goes in and whether they are looking at all of those factors. Because for me personally, I mean, maybe that's just me, that I'm too much into details, but I feel that if I had to look at a certain, like, I'll give you a good example with regards to the team that we've built at Cricket Fanatics Magazine. There are certain writers or certain people that are working with us that are best for certain jobs and others better for that job than others. So there are certain pieces that come to me, or certain stories that come my way, or certain aspects in cricket that I see, and I'm like, a teacher would be the perfect person to write that piece, or maybe a buy would be the perfect person to cover that, or maybe the twins are good enough to be able to cover this, or X or Y or Z. Oh, maybe we should get Emily on that particular show, or maybe whatever the case may be. Like, you start to get a sense of who's best for that particular role or that particular outcome that you're trying to get. Do you feel that coaches think like that when they're picking their test 11? Or have they already have this predetermined idea of pockets of, no, this is who we think we should pick because they are the best averages in the country, and we should teach them now how to adapt their game, regardless of whether they will have the ability to be able to adapt their game or not. You know, like, I mean, for example, maybe we should, for example, that interview that we had with Dean Alga, there was a particular question you asked, which I'm not going to get into heavily, but it had to do with with shot selection, for example. So say now, if a player, if we need to play spin, and you know that the sweep shot is necessary, or you know that you need to come to the bounce of the ball, but maybe the batter's ability isn't clued on enough or ready for be able to take that step, do you just force it on him until he gets the right? Or do you pick now someone else? Because I don't see, like in football, ultimately, if you have two footballers, you can just kind of interchange them into the system, like to fit. Like maybe someone's not firing or scoring, then you just swap him out and there's no love lost. Where I feel is in cricket and in test cricket, it's a lot more harsh to do so. It's not. I don't think that maybe it's acceptable for guys to pl- to to pick players interchangeably. Like imagine a teacher if we had like a first 11 that plays, that we know, okay, this team is going to play against England, and then we have another first 11. We're like, oh wait, maybe we should change this around. They will play against India, but it will be a completely different top five. Imagine that. If there will ever be a world like that, where you were like, you can have two complete different 11s almost playing in the same test championship based on their abilities and what they can handle.
It's quite hilarious to think about. But I think generally, with the nature of cricket, means that adaptability is plays a huge part in how successful the player is, and good players likely to succeed in all conditions. Yeah, albeit a few tweaks might be necessary to adapt, but that's about it. Um, what you said about coaches making those considerations, I think it's happened in South African cricket on a number of occasions. One being Faf du Plessis' debut, because when he was selected for the Test tour of England in 2012, at that point he wasn't doing particularly. He was averaging in the 30s in first class cricket, and there weren't a lot of other batters who were really knocking the door down. But the coaches saw his character, how he was around the team, and at that point, he'd also played in England for a couple of years. He had played a bit of the IPL. He was exposed to ODI and T20 cricket as well. So, um, I think it's a wide variety of factors that go into a selection, just not a player's stats. In saying that, I think a lot of selection is about timing. About when to introduce a player, and who to rest and so on. And it's a lot, and it's quite complicated because oftentimes, for example, with India, the nature of the broadcast deals that the BCCI has struck with broadcasters sort of compels them to want to play their best 11 every single time. You do want to play with your big names every single time, but that's not always possible. And I suspect that that's the case with a lot of countries. Like for example, Shakib Al Hassan, wanted to he wanted to rest. He didn't want to play he didn't want to play South Africa, but now he's agreed to play South Africa, and I do feel like in addition to the quality of cricket, there is there is a commercial angle that that is a part of that discussion also, because Shakib's presence makes it a bit more appealing for the average cricket fan to watch the series, because he is a popular figure. He's known worldwide. But in saying that, I think about England. If Joe Root, God forbid, but if Joe Root gets injured or he's fatigued and he needs to rest, perhaps, who's going to replace him? Because that entire batting order depends entirely on Joe Root. And it begs the question, is someone looking for a backup for that position? Because Joe Root is not going to play forever, and at some stage they need to look at someone who can fill that role. And therefore, it's important that Joe Root gets his rest, but it's also important for that replacement to play as much international cricket as possible, so that when Joe Root decides to call it quits, England don't struggle as much.
Look, I'm going to play a little bit of fantasy over here, Aditya, in my head. Guys, my brain is all over the place. So mind you, you might get some crazy theories like this now and again on the podcast show. This is the place for it. Imagine if things transgress to the point where, because obviously as humans develop and we get better at our, and groundsmen get better at their jobs, and teams develop and players develop and they're seeing more different types of pitches and etc. They are going to become these specialist players more and more so. Players are going to start to find. I feel that players are going to start to find niches and areas of cricket, because there's so much cricket happening, so many different formats, where they are going to just say, I'm going to dominate this and become a specialist at this, and then and my life will be set up. I'm just going to focus maybe on being a test cricketer towards the end of my career. Then I'm going to try and play some white ball cricket, get myself ready for retirement, and go and play T20 cricket in the last couple of years of my life. And that can be just that player's mindset, and that's his goal, and that's his story. But imagine, just in a crazy wizarding world, you could say, make up your own game of cricket. Imagine if you had a spin specialist, a seam specialist, or fast bowler specialist that is good on the high ball, and then you've got guys that are good at reading the swing deliveries. And you get into the stage, you got like a team of 22, and you can like say now it's day 3 of the test. It's a rank turner, and you've picked a whole lot of batters that are good against seam, and you're thinking maybe this is strategic. You need to change it around, and you bring sub a batter on, and he comes in there and he plays a great performance, spinning against a spinning delivery, and he dominates as a spinning masterclass against the spinners, and then he goes and plays a massive knock to win you the game. Imagine if they allow like 3 special subs. Like, let's not take a squad of 22, but imagine if you could have 3 special subs that you could sub in at the time when you think that is necessary. It would change the game from a strategic perspective in a whole different manner. Things will become complicated, but it will be fun, won't you think? imagine doing that. Like, for example, picking on a rank turner, and then you know that you're going to bat first, and you decide, okay, guys, look here. This pitch is not going to turn on day 1, but it's going to swing a little bit. Let's just bring 4. Let's just have 5 swing bowlers in the team, or 5 seamers. And then on day 3, when we bat again, or day 4, when we bat again, we switch it around. Day 4, when we bowl again, sorry, then we bring our spinner into the arena and drop one of the seamers, and then you can have like a sub. I think that would be interesting. What do you think?
Your brain is all over the place today, and it sounds quite chaotic, to be perfectly honest.
It's to emphasize that thought of balance, and making sure that you're balanced, that you have that 11 balanced, because otherwise we're going to sit with a chaotic situation like that, where there's going to be a situation where you picking players that maybe are only going to worry, or are we going to focus on certain disciplines, where I feel that particularly batters, need to become holistic in their approach. I think the future cricketer needs to become holistic in their approach. I don't. I think gone are the days where they are going to be specialists. I think as cricket evolves, we're going to see less and less specialists. In fact, in this game, because I think that majority of people to get their money and to make their money, the T20 game is probably the most lucrative when it comes to that.
Um, Look, that's a massive conversation. But I think if you look at you look at test players that have succeeded in the T20 format. You look at most of the players that have succeeded in the T20 format. They've been test players. They've played a lot of test cricket. Chris Gale, he's he was probably like the first of the mercenaries of sorts. Going around the world scoring 10,000 plus T20 or T20I runs. But what a lot of people forget is that he's played over 100 Test matches, and he scored truckloads of runs in Test cricket, including a couple of triple centuries. So I do think that the nature of cricket makes the fact that makes Test cricket the pinnacle of the sport, where if you can succeed at that level, you will succeed in ODI and T20 cricket. Uh, but in saying that, there are certain cases where specialization does work, and I think that's specific to players who are perhaps a little bit injury prone. For example, you have Tamal Mills in England. You know, he I mean, the nature of his body is such that he is injury prone. He can't do much about it, so he can't have heavy workloads. So he has tuned his skills to bowl 4 overs, so that he can play cricket and he can be a good bowler. But there's no way that his body can adapt to the workload of a test bowler. And I think that's fine. That's okay. There's not much you can do there. Um, but yeah, look, I think we do have death bowling specialists. There are power play bowlers. I think specialization has we're calling it specialization now, but I think every cricketer has basically been playing based on his or her strengths, right? Like, for example, you have it's it was Glenn McGrath's strength to bowl, at the beginning of an innings. That wicket to wicket bowling, metronome sort of bowling was his strength. But perhaps he can't swing the ball both ways, like like um, who can swing the ball both ways? Everyone can swing the ball. No, not everyone.
Tailstein.
But yeah, like Tails. Yeah, like can't. He doesn't have that outrageous 150 plus sort of outswinger, right? Um, because that's not McGrath's strength. That's Dale Stein's strength. So I think we're calling it specialization now, but basically it's playing to your strengths, and I think cricket's always been about that, as has every sport perhaps.
Such an amazing sport, man. Like it's the details are becoming even more and more. The details are going to make the sport even more interesting, because these days with analysts and stuff, and I know Aditya, that's something that you love. Is that video analysts and getting involved with that and understanding how they look at things. And the more technology evolves, etc., the importance of having a balanced side is going to be more and more important as the game grows, because players are going to you need to make sure that that the balance is general, so that you're not disrupting too much from series to series. So you need so that having that structure in your 11, thinking about that, and not just going game to game. I think maybe they need to analyze things over a period, or look at their schedule list and see this and look at it through periods and say, um, these players are only maybe going to play in these countries against this opposition. These players are not. These players are, whatever the case may be. Like, I have those type of plans going, so that these players can also know where they stand and what they need to focus towards. And that type of planning can happen in this day and age. Definitely. That type of planning can happen with the amount of information we have, the amount of access to so many games on TV. I mean, we've got England versus West Indies. We can watch it live on Supersport. Like it's it's like we have availability to so much cricket now that planning should be even more so important now than it ever was before.
You know, the irony of having access to all of this technology and analysts and so on is that in most of the interviews that we've done, and we've posed that question to players, they've actually said that they don't use it as much,
Yeah, which is weird.
which, yeah, which I think is it's quite funny. It's rare. I mean, you look at the number of players that actually use it. So Ravichandran Ashwin is obviously one of them. You know, to the extent that he actually works with, you know, with like back end developers of an app to, you know, to get it right for the Indian team. You know,
Oh.
so he's into that sort of stuff. Like the Indian team has this app that they've developed where they can basically they can view footage from all over the world. You know, every single game, every single ball,
Mm.
and they can get whatever they want to using that app. You know, whether it's you know a player's hand position when they're facing a wrist spinner versus a player's head position when they're facing an off spinner. You know, like different random things like that. And it's quite funny to see how much access there is and how much of a role data can play in cricket. But also, there's actually a very small number of cricketers that use it to their advantage because
Mm.
what it tells me is that cricket is still such an instinct driven game.
Yeah. It's
Like
crazy
MS
that it
Dhoni
is though.
has no time. Has like MS Dhoni has no time for any of this. You know, like it's he's known for for having this thing that you know you guys want to have a bowling meeting, you guys can do it. You let me know when you let me know what your plans are when we're at the ground.
Yeah. It's mad that professional sportsmen that not everything works for everyone. You know, certain things work for some and certain things don't work for others. And I don't know. It's interesting because maybe also all this information it's too much to handle because maybe your brain will just go into overdrive. There's too much information to look at. Where the person's foot is landing, where the person's foot is going to end up when his foot faces outwards, then he's on a bowl and outswing. If he's inwards, then it's one. I don't know, whatever the case may be. But generally speaking, there's so much information out there. It could confuse players a lot more than it ever did before. I guess that's maybe why they're a bit scared to have information overdrive and just maybe pick the wrong
Yeah,
decision because a data analyst will probably be able to give you five, six, seven different options that you need to pick from. In that moment, when that ball is coming at you at 150 kilometers, I'm sure all of those choices and options are out of the window. You're just going to pick the one that comes to you first.
I mean, Owen Morgan was is probably one of those captains who really collaborated with the data analyst Nathan Lehman, and from what I've heard, I believe Faf du Plessis is a good mix between having that information and using his instinct on the field. Um, so that's I mean that's what I've heard. Uh, but you know it is interesting to hear what you say about information or whatever. I can certainly see that happening because I think one thing that data probably doesn't account for is that cricket has so many variables. You know
Mm.
that things change on a daily basis. For example, like I don't think anyone can be 100% sure of how a pitch is going to play.
I
There's
wanted
no
to say
way.
that now. I wanted to say that now because, like, how many times have you watched a test match where the pitch report says one thing and then the result is something else? Like,
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you look at the test match going on right now between India and Sri Lanka. You know, it's been about what 7 years I think since the first pink ball test was played, and I think it's probably the second or third pink ball test played in India, and it's just going at a rapid pace. Like the game's going to be over in 2.5 3 days. because the pink ball is only now being tested in spinning conditions, and that ball, it spins a corner. It spins an absolute corner, and it bounces a lot. So there's obviously a lot of work that's still going to be needed to ensure that the pink ball test is similar to what it's like in Australia or South Africa, perhaps. Uh, but yeah, it's interesting. Like, no one predicted that the test is going to be as rapid as it has been.
Mm. Got a question over here from Mars Boy asking, "Hi Hardy, please tell me more about the under 19 players are not playing in, on why more under 19 players are not playing in the domestics." I think that the rule of if you're contracted, I think there's a rule where if you are contracted by Cricket South Africa, you have to play if you're available and if they agree. So, for example, there are a lot of Proteas players that are now available to play in this tournament. So, I think if you're contracted, you play. That's the rule by majority of the franchises. That is a blanket state rule. I think. I'll have to go find out again. Once again, you guys give me a lot of homework to do if it's still the case. But I remember it was the case. If you are contracted by Cricket South Africa and you play for the Proteas, and you're contracted, then you should play if you're available. If you can play. If you're not available, obviously you don't play. But I think that's happening at the big franchises like the Titans, for example, who have so many Proteas contracted players. The likes of Diova Prievas is not getting opportunities in this one day cup because there are so many players available currently in that one day setup that need to play, plus the quota, the transformation targets that they have to obviously adhere to, which is 6 players of color. That's also going to cause some issues. We obviously got to see more opportunities in the CSA T20 Challenge because majority of the Proteas players were busy. So this is different now in the One Day Cup that everybody's available. So I think that is also causing a bit of an issue within the setup. I saw someone mention why is Dean Alger playing and not Deoval Brevis, for example, and maybe that is a sacrifice. If I was the Titans captain, maybe that I would make someone that is maybe not in the reckoning for the ODI side. Um, no need for them to play. You can play a younger player that maybe has an opportunity to show what they're capable of in the future. So yeah, I think that's the reason why we're not seeing as many under 19 players. And also, if you look at the way the under 19s did in the under 19 World Cup, they never necessarily did really well when you're looking at it, considering. So it's not like they were in a in the knockout rounds of the tournament where they were playing for semi-final spots or a final and then not getting picked. Um, they never had a very good tournament, and not a lot of players came to the party. So I don't think our under 19 World Cup was a good reflection of our talent. And when those boys come into the setup right now, remember they haven't played domestic cricket, a lot of them. So the coaches are going to tend to go with the trial and tested, the ones that are experienced, the ones that have played for a very, very long time. So unfortunately, under 19 players some of them are going to have to wait for their turn. Not all coaches have the same mentality and philosophy. Some want to blood young players in, some want to give more experienced players an opportunity. Um, Winning trophies is very important too. It's must win now for every franchise because of how close this relegation situation that's going to be happening is going to cause problems because franchises are going to lose a lot of money if they get relegated. Not just by money, actual money, but value they're going to lose because some players might not want to stick around in Division Two. They might want to move around if they and go to play for a Division One team. So it's very important that these teams win their games because if they get relegated, because the relegation happens over all formats. It's one day, first class, which is 4 day cricket, as well as T20 cricket, and they will assess it and weigh it up and then decide who gets relegated. So it is important that they pick their best players because they need to win games. So I understand that view if they do want to do so. But right, let's move on. I want to talk about the Proteas women. They're having a massive, massive game this 3 a.m. South African Standard Time. I'll be awake for it, so be watching that so we can maybe talk about it a little bit on the show tomorrow. But this is a proper test for South Africa. Their last 5 matches against England have been poor. England, the last 5 matches that we played, 2018, 20, 2018 was the last three games, and then 2017 again. But if you look at the last five, England have won in every single match. If you look at the head-to-head between England and South Africa in one-day internationals, so it's going to be a very difficult, very, very, very difficult game, I feel. South Africa had an excellent start to the tournament, yes. They played debutants Bangladesh and then they beat Pakistan. It was a very close encounter, but I think that the way the Pakistan game went and the way those players were tested and the players that stood up are maybe not players that you would necessarily say um, are not necessarily the younger players that stood up, or Lazal Lee with a bat. Lazal Lee never stood up. The experienced players like that didn't step up. But we saw our middle order, which tends to be maybe our weakest part of the in the team, step up. Sunil Roos, excellent. Trisha Chetty, excellent. Um, Chloe Tryon, excellent. These were all players that had question marks over their heads leading into this World Cup. Not because, not I wouldn't say glaring question marks, but slight. If there was any question marks to have, it was over those particular players. Sune coming in, replacing Dane Fenike, Chloe Tryon coming back into the setup after a long time off of struggling with injuries, changing the way she bowls now. She's a spinner, not a medium pacer in Seema anymore. That's changed. So now she's in the setup, looking to see if she still has that ability. Trisha Chetty, she's been pushed to 7 down the order after being a top order batter for South Africa. She showed her class. And then she's already a goat in Shabnim Ismail. Excellent. As per usual. Always on top of her game. She's phenomenal player. And then we have Ayabonga Kaka as well. Excellent player. Now, if you're looking at the head-to-heads against, if you're looking at the players to watch when you're talking about this match, I mean, the clear-cut, obvious ones from an England perspective is Tommy Beaumont, Heather Knight, Kate Cross. They're all going to be players that are going to be very difficult. Sophie as well. She's going to be someone that we need to look out for. But from South Africa's perspective, Laura Wolfat, Luz, Shaman Ismail, and Ayabonga Kaka are all kind of in form currently. But I think that England need to be most worried about Lazal Lee in that power play. I think if Lazal Lee comes off, almost always South Africa will win a match if she does well. So I'm hoping to see what they can do. I'm interested to see what this pitch will do and what type of pitch it's going to be. Going to be very interesting to see how the players play against England, because my biggest thing is not necessarily about how South Africa approaches this game from a tactical perspective and all of those type of things. No. For me, South Africa should be good enough from on paper and tactically and technically to beat England. England should be tactically and technically good to beat South Africa. But yet one team has had a perfect start and the other team hasn't. So we're coming into an occasion over here where South Africa's coming off with a lot of confidence and England's not. But then you've got this massive cloud over South Africa's head when it comes against England. They haven't necessarily been very good against England. So they're going to have to, what I think South Africa needs to do is to put that aside, forget about that past, forget about the games against England in the past. And if they play their game and they go with the momentum and allow the momentum to take them forward, we could be in for a major win from a South African perspective. Now, from your aspect, Aditya, how do you rate South Africa's chances against England? First and foremost, they need to score above 240 at least, I feel, or maybe above 220 at least to try and win a game. I think the Proteas Women are in a similar type of situation when it comes to our bowlers, where we have this world-class bowling attack and we're not scared of having to defend low totals. But against an England side that has so much batting power, we need to make sure that we're on the money. So What's your thoughts on this particular clash? What you're looking forward to? Where and how do you think South Africa should go about it to win, to get a victory and the third victory on the bounce?
Well, in tournament play, it's always said that if if you aren't playing your best cricket but you're still winning, that's the best sign. And if you look at that game against Pakistan, it was blockbuster stuff. That is nail biting, high pressure sort of situation. And if you can come through that, if you can get through that unscathed, then you certainly have a very good chance of beating most teams. And I felt like against Pakistan, there was a recovery at play. It wasn't like, I don't think South Africa had played their best cricket in that game, but they found a way to win. And can you imagine if they take their game up a notch against England, what will happen? So personally, I'm very encouraged. I think the team will be very high on confidence after the start to their tournament, 1, 2, and 2, and I'm more than excited to see what that game against England will bring. But yeah, I mean, I think if they get their basics right, if Shabnam Misbah, pulls off a couple of catches like she did in that last tour against Pakistan, then 100%.
Yeah, I mean, they have all the talent, they have all the skill, they have all the ability. They just need to come through and perform well. Like I said, it's important that they forget about the past. I think that's very, very important. That they forget about the past and forget about their record against England. Because South Africa only won 8 games against England in their period of playing cricket from 1997 to 2018 when we've played against England. South Africa has played 38 matches against them. They've only won 8. They lost 29. So it's a very bad record. And it's a team that always had their number. But South Africa is going to need to put that in the past and perform and put that in the past. I think this is possibly the best South African team I've seen, though, since I've been watching women's cricket. Over the from a balance perspective, from skill set perspective, I think they've got an excellent squad. They can, like they literally could, if we were playing sub cricket where there were subs allowed, they would have the perfect bench because I think every single possible outcome or every single possible thing that they face, they have a player there to be able to combat that. So good luck to the Proteas women. I'm looking forward to watching the game, and I hope they get that victory and end that terrible record against England. I think if they beat England in a World Cup in a tournament like this, the amount of confidence is going to give these ladies. I just hope that they can stay grounded and go on to make a final. For me, that would make me absolutely and magnificently proud, is then just make it final at least. Whether they win it or not, that's obviously up to the gods above, or the god above. But other than that, you're gonna have to play your best cricket. The excellent point that you made over there is that they're winning without playing their best cricket, and that's so good for them moving forward. So I'm very excited to see what they have, what is in store for this game. But guys, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you a lot for tuning in. Aditya, anything else you want to say before we say goodbye to the fans? Nope. Okay, we'll see you guys again tomorrow for another daily show. Don't forget to subscribe, click that notification bell for all future videos. Don't forget to smash the like button. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to share. We need that, guys, to get us into recommended feeds on YouTube. Also, get involved with cricketfanaticsmag.com. That's where you'll get all your updates. We will be updating on the women's game, of course. We will be covering the game. So stay tuned to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all our updates on the match. And then also become a Patreon today. The link is on the screen and in the description. As you guys know, we are 100% bootstrapped. So we're going to need you guys to be alongside us on this journey. This is your journey as well as a fanatic. So join us on this journey and get involved with Cricket Fanatics Magazine. But the most important part, that's the link on the screen right now. Subscribe to Cricket Fanatics Magazine monthly. Every issue, 100% free, straight to your inbox every single month. The link is in the description. Thanks, Aditya. Thanks a lot to all of you out there for joining us on the show. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another Daily Show. Take care, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your week. Cheers.